John Wick Chapter 4 has been out for a couple weeks now, and to be honest, it's the only thing I've been able to think about since seeing it. I've loved all of the John Wick films up to this point, but something felt different about this one even before I'd seen it. Just the fact that it was the longest film in the series, clocking in at 2 hours and 49 minutes, kind of acting like a point in itself. Like, if a film is going to be that long, then it's going to be that long for a reason, and after seeing the film, I can completely understand why they put it to that length. On top of that, the film itself, when you watch it, kind of feels like a culmination of everything that's come before. Everything that worked about the previous three films and everything they've set up with the previous three films as well, feels like it, first of all, comes to a head in this fourth film, but also feels like all of those aspects that worked from the previous movies is kind of perfected and also pushed to its extreme in Chapter 4. Now, like I said before, I love all of the John Wick films. However, I think each film in the series works for its own unique reasons, other than the action being brilliant. The first film works best for its simplicity and its story. The second film works for its expansion on the world building. The third film, which was my favourite up until now, works best for its just pure relentlessness. The fact that it just starts in the middle of the action and then doesn't let up for the entire thing. And the fourth film, personally, I think works for having some of the best characters in the series, and again, like I said earlier, feeling like a true encapsulation of what this series is about and what it was created for in the first place. And what really helps the series in terms of its evolution with each film is that I feel like Chad Stahelski's direction and camera work has also gotten better with each film. That's not to say it was bad to begin with. The first film is great for a reason, and it felt like a breath of fresh air amongst all the other action films that were coming out at the time. But I do feel like the style of the films and the direction and his confidence in directing these action scenes really has come to a head in Chapter 4, which I personally think is the best looking and best directed film in the series to date. Now, don't get me wrong, I love Chapter 2 and 3. Like I said a second ago, Chapter 3 was my favourite until Chapter 4 came along. And the action scenes in those films are great and astoundingly brilliant for all the reasons you've heard people say before. But John Wick Chapter 4 has a few specific fight scenes that genuinely feel like they're trying something new. Like I said, the action scenes in the previous three films are great for their own reasons because they do what the John Wick films do well. But John Wick Chapter 4 is the first time in the series I can confidently say that they were trying new things, not just with the fight scenes themselves, but also specifically in how they were shot and executed. And there are three specific moments in John Wick Chapter 4 that specifically spring to mind. I'll be as vague as I can because I realise not everyone has seen this film yet, but all I will say is that the first scene takes place during the Japanese continental section of the film. The second scene is this insane car chase around the Arc de Triomphe, and the third scene is what everyone is calling the Hotline Miami scene. If you've played any of the Hotline Miami games, like myself, then you will kind of have an idea of what they do during this fight scene in terms of the camera. And I'm just going to say something regarding that last scene. I have wanted to see an action film use that sort of camera move for a long, long time. And the fact that John Wick Chapter 4 just goes ahead and straight up does it was so incredibly satisfying to me, especially seeing it in the cinema. But again, these scenes, and also the movie as a whole, just proves to me that Chad Stahelski has improved as a filmmaker with each film, and that he is really coming into his own, especially with Chapter 4. The fact that he's trying these new things and really wants to up the ante in terms of what the fight scenes can do, but also how they look through the camera and how they make you feel as an audience member. And I think what helps John Wick Chapter 4 be as good as it is the characters. Don't get me wrong, the story is fine and it works for the sake of the film, but it isn't necessarily the thing you walk away from going, Christ, that story was incredible. That's not the thing you take away from John Wick Chapter 4. The characters, on the other hand, both old and new ones, are the thing that, in my opinion, glue this film together and make it work as well as it does. Because you have a lot of elements at play in this film and a lot of characters being introduced or coming back that you need to really care about. And if you don't care about them, then everything will just fall apart and the action scenes won't work as well as they do. However, because these characters are as good as they are, it makes the film 10 times better and just holds everything in place just that bit stronger. For example, you have this character that is just simply titled the Tracker. In the film, he's referred to as Nobody, and he is a really interesting and intriguing character where you don't really know much about him, and he's only really there for one specific thing. But the way they subtly develop his character throughout the film and his relationship with John, it is very interesting to see what he does, how he plays off of all these other characters, and also just generally how he weaves throughout this story of pre-established things that we come to expect with a John Wick film. And then we get to my favourite character in the entire film, which is Kane, played by the impeccable Donnie Yen. There is so many reasons why I love not just this character, but Donnie Yen's portrayal of him. You feel sympathy for his character, because all he wants to do is to be able to see his daughter again, but thanks to the high table and certain circumstances that we never truly find out what or why, he has to be brought back into the game to try and take out John. Now, we've had a few characters like this in both the second and the third movie, so this is really nothing new for the John Wick series, but they make Kane a really compelling character just on his own that makes him stand out amongst the other ones similar to this that we've seen throughout the series. Now, for some reason, he's playing another blind guy, and I really hope that's not some typecast that's now been developed since he was in Rogue One. But yeah, I mean this as a compliment, but he plays blind very well, and the way he utilizes that aspect of his character in the fight scenes is really something else when you see it happen on screen. Like, there is this moment near the start of the film where Donnie Yen's character places these motion censored doorbells around the walls of the kitchen that he's hiding in, so that whenever someone walks past it, he knows exactly where in the room that person is, so he can just pop out from behind cover and pop a shot at them. Just little things like that I find really fascinating, and again develops the skill of this character in a really interesting way. Plus, there is also this classically Donnie Yen style moment where he's kicked a ton of these guys' asses and there's one guy left, and he pins the guy to the wall with his cane and puts the gun up to his head and tries to feel where the top of his head is, and you think he's going to shoot him in the head, but instead he just backhands him with the end of the gun. Like, it's just a stylish little quirky thing that only Donnie Yen would think of, and it's such a cool moment. It's kind of pointless, but I loved it. As of this moment in time, John Wick Chapter 4 might be my favourite in the series. Chapter 3 is very, very close behind, and to be honest, it's going to be a case of them two moving position multiple times. But to be honest, John Wick is one of those rare franchises, specifically action franchises, that somehow has got better with each film. And that's not to say that the first and the second film weren't good either. They're both really good films as well, but I feel like both the filmmaking and everything that goes into these films has improved with each movie. Similarly to the Mission Impossible films. They started off decently, but I think everyone can agree that they have just got better with each film in the franchise, to the point where you get to Mission Impossible Fallout and you have arguably some of the best stunts in the entire series in that film. If you've seen John Wick Chapter 4 or any of the John Wick films, let me know what you think about them in the comments below. I'd love to talk to you about those films in the comments. If you like the video, then give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Bye.